Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, February 15th, 2024, and I'd like to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research 2 channel here on YouTube. All 34 of you. Thank you for coming to visit me. I don't think I'm going to get a lot more subscribers because I am just so contrary to what's being said all over YouTube and the internet. Well, not in everything, but a lot of stuff. So I feel like, I'm the filling of an Oreo cookie, pressure from above and pressure from below. But whatever, I don't care. I'm doing this for, my own edification. So I might as well drag you 34 suckers along with me while I'm doing it. So, in any case, this video is going to be about giants and the Bible, in the Bible. And before we even get to that, I just want to highly recommend to you a video that Robert Sephard just produced recently, just one video ago. The Out of Africa Theory Debunked video. And it's very, very interesting, and probably
here's a short
if you watch this before you watch my video, you might have a better appreciation for what I'm going to say about what I think the reality is of the sort of historical mythology that we have here that's going on about the giants in the Bible. But before that, just maybe you want to watch this Robert Sephard video. Now, in this video, this fellow right here, David Wright, who happens to be one of the top well-known DNA researchers who's done research into Neanderthal DNA and present-day population, and more thorough and detailed study of the Denisovan DNA in Asian populations. So he's able to identify, where certain people's had either more or less or whatever, had some, but more or less people had in Asian countries have the Denisovan DNA in them. And the Denisovans, as far as I know from the research that I've read about it, were of a different body type, and many of them had tails. That's what I read about in the research about the Denisovans in Russia there. So they had tails, and people are born with vestigial tails now and then. Okay, so what might that suggest to you? What other vestigial or rare vestigial organs might be in some present day population? Maybe even an extra pituitary gland there that just doesn't belong there, possibly. Okay, not a tumor, something that belongs there, but I'll talk about that a little bit more maybe later on, but let's concentrate on this. So anyway, this fellow David Wright did all this research into basically who we are and how we got here. And in this little snippet in lecture in Robert Sephard's video there, he talks about the African population and the ghost DNA that's in the African population. Okay, and he says, he begs himself the question, he asks himself the question, how many other ghost DNAs are there in the present day population? He says hundreds. Kind of low when he says it too, and to himself. Hundreds. Okay? And one of those DNAs could very well be these giant humanoid people from the past, okay, because there's something odd about our species, okay? So, like, when you see a school of fish like this here, and you see a flock of birds, all right, they all seem to be within a relatively same size. Of course, it could be a slightly larger one here and there, or maybe even a slightly smaller one, but all within the same range of size, give or take a little here and there, but not totally exaggerated sizes. You don't see a big giant one there and like a little peewee one there flying along. Of course, they're young, might be flying along with them or swimming with them in a school, but not the sort of exaggerated sizes we vary in our species, right? Okay? Not to this extent. Alright, so anyway, I watched Robert Sepper's video there, and this particular guy here, where he says that hundreds of ghosts in our DNA. Okay? All different sorts of humanoids, which I've been saying for a long time. I didn't need to read this guy's book. Okay, I read all the accounts of the giants and many, many other things, including Cabeza de Vaca's description of the peoples here in the Americas. It's a completely credible witness. So, he saw giant peoples, he saw little primitive people, so, look, we're an amalgamation, a hybrid, okay? No other animal species has this issue on the planet, If you see domestic cats and dogs within their own breeds, yeah, they could be a large male, alpha type male, big guy and all kind of stuff, but all within the same range of size, so, within tolerable limits there, not like this, okay? Shaq is a real giant. He's got a lot of that DNA, and there's no doubt about it. They can't explain it. Like, I read the travel blog about the Frisian people there in northern Holland and Germany there, and how the journalist in the article there said scientists can't explain it. That's because we should be like the animals, right? We're all the same species. What's the problem? Okay, so we're not. Okay, so, this is the fellow who's going to tell you all about it. And based on the Denisovans alone and their DNA being the populations there, okay, being that they go so far back in time prehistorically, right, to match any evidence of Lucy and all that kind of stuff, which is baloney anyway. But, alright, so I just watched Robert Sepper's video here, the Out of Africa theory debunked. Okay, you can forget all about that. Okay, so current research doesn't support any of those claims. Even the guy who came up with the theory says now, based on the DNA evidence, that he's got to rethink the whole thing. Alright, so you just forget about all that junk you learned about in school, the misinformation that you learned in school, okay? Not to blame scientists or whatever, but our thinking along these lines seems rather primitive as of yet, right? Okay, based on the technology of today and DNA research or whatever. So, let's get to what I'm talking about as far as what's going on with the Bible here, and things that just don't make a lot of sense. We can sort of break it down and see what it says here about the giants in the Bible. Let me see here. Darn it. I thought I had this all set up right. Okay, so in particular we're going to talk about the Book of Giants, okay? And let's go back one here. I believe this is where it is. Okay, the book of the giants in the Bible tells the story of the Watchers, their offspring, and the fate of the giants. The Watchers are the sons of God who rebelled against heaven by having sexual relations with human women. The book also mentions the Nephilim, angel-human hybrids that are also known as Gibborim or giants. The Book of Giants is available in two main versions: the Dead Sea version, written in Aramaic, Middle Persian version, adapted from the Aramaic version to fit into the Manichaean religion. The Bible also describes giants in Genesis 6:1-4 and Genesis 6:4. It states, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. When the sons of God went into the daughters of human who bore children to them, these were heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. And that's talking about the men of renown, right? So the men of renown are these heroes. Okay, so, all right, so I got a lot of problems with this right away. So let's break it down into, something we can understand, because even the Bible itself has to be broken down into terms we can understand. Otherwise, how can it help us in our lives? Okay, if they're just baby stories about, about magic things going on or whatever, it's not going to help us discover anything about ourselves, which is primarily what the Bible is about. But this beginning stuff, the Genesis and all kind of stuff, is sort of like a, mythological history of the story of the Hebrews or, the Jews or whatever, so we have to sort of read between the lines here to see what's being said. And so, but right off the bat, I just want to tell you the problems that I have with some of this. If it's so be real, okay? So let's talk about these Watchers, these giant humanoid creatures from heaven, I guess. All right, they're having sexual relations with average-sized women. No, because if a giant person is going to be having sexual relations with average-sized women, how is she going to carry a 30 and 40-pound baby? That ain't going to happen. You see? And I think the largest baby ever in recorded history, the heaviest birth on record for a newborn, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, is 22 pounds. All right? That baby was born in a home in Seville, Ohio, on January 19th, 1879. The baby, who is not officially named but was referred to as Babe, died just 11 hours later. A couple of things interested me there, right? First of all, the baby's born in Ohio, where the Adena were, and right adjacent to them, the Native American Indians in 1800 were among the largest people in the world. Interesting, right there. Okay, and why it died just 11 hours later? Well, some maybe incompatibility there in genetic material, maybe. Just saying, maybe. All right, so alright, so that ain't happening, alright? But it could happen the other way around. You see, average-sized guys could be having sex with giant females. They don't say these Watchers are either male or female. Are we supposed to assume they're all male? So let's say the giant Watchers and whoever, hybrids and whatnot, were female, okay? And they were giant. Okay, and just a regular-sized guy had intercourse with one of these giant-sized females. Okay, that would be a successful pregnancy, wouldn't you think? I think that's the way that it went. It didn't go the other way around, because that one is really going to be an unsuccessful pregnancy, most likely, don't you think? All right, 30 and 40-pound babies in average size, 120-pound female. 140-pound female, ain't happening. Okay, unless they savagely took them out of their wombs once they gestated enough or whatever. But maybe it's possible by the stories that they tell about how savage and vicious they were, which in my mind too could raise some other possibilities. But let's talk about these contradiction right here. Okay, so the Bible also describes giants in Genesis, and they were in earth in those days and also afterward. Okay, so apparently Noah and his band of people there, his family there, weren't the only ones to survive the flood. The giants certainly did. And we already knew about the Garden of Eden. There were people outside the Garden of Eden. Well, who were those people if Adam and Eve were the first people? What people are they talking about? Is there different kind of people are they talking about? Probably. You know, many of these researchers now, like this guy, is going to say, you know, the world of the past would resemble more like J.R. Tolkien's world, and that's what they say if you watch Robert Suffer's video. All right. Okay, more like Tolkien's vision of the past based on all the mythologies that he knew about the giants and trolls and whoever these people were monikered. You know, I told you about the Native American names were mostly pejoratives and made up shit, you know, so it's not their real names or whatever. We made it all up, let them help us make it up for them. You know, we just adopted that. It doesn't matter. We didn't need an explanation. But in any case, and also when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans who bore children to them, these were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. Okay, so heroes of old and warriors around, that doesn't sound like bad guys. That doesn't sound like cannibals and all that kind of stuff. Can they make up their mind in the Bible there, what these giants were? Were they cannibals according to the book of Enoch and all that kind of stuff, the book of the giants? You know, Enoch is just another version, a more detailed version of that, where they didn't have to, you know, slight all the giants because of the narrative that happened later on, you know, when the Bible was written and all kind of stuff, at least starting to be taken down from oral histories or whatever it is. All right, well, what was going on later? Well, the other parts of the Bible that mention giants that, you know, we're not reading about right here, I don't want to take it to the Wikipedia, you know, well, let's go to the Wikipedia article. Let me see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I don't know if this is not the Wikipedia article thing. Let's see here. I think it's here somewhere. Okay, yeah. So let me read you from this. You might be interested in what it said here because it's kind of nutty too. The Book of the Giants is an apocryphal book which expands upon the Genesis narrative of the Hebrew Bible in a similar manner to the Book of Enoch. Together with this latter work, the Book of Giants stands as an attempt to explain how it was that wickedness had become so widespread and muscular before the flood. In so doing, it also supplies the reason why God was more than justified in sending that flood. The text composition has been dated to before the 2nd century BC. Oh, okay. I'm going to talk about this before we get into anything because this right here is ridiculous. Okay, so God sent a flood because of all the debauchery to eliminate all the giants and everything else. Well, how successful was he with that? Wasn't too successful if that's what his intention was, to get rid of all these people. Well, he didn't. All right, so does that make any sense to anybody here? So it's like, oh, okay. Sure. No problem there, yeah. You killed a whole bunch of innocent people to get rid of these giants because that's what God does. If you read, you know, theological writings and stuff and articles by people who are religious people and whatnot, you have one in here somewhere. Okay, about how the justification of how Jason went into the Canaanite city there and killed everybody, including children, innocent children, right? So you're going to kill children. How are children guilty for what their parents do? But it doesn't matter because God doesn't need a reason, just tells you what to do and you do it automatically like a robot. And don't question anything and kill all the women and children, and neglect to mention all the animals too, because that's just over the top. Yeah, I think it was this article. No, here, this article, Slaughter of the Canaanites. And this fellow here, there's a question and answer on a reasonable William Wayne Craig Faith blog here or whatever. Is an explanation on why God doesn't need a reason to kill innocent people. They got to die with the wicked people. That's just the way it is, and that's what God does. And not in the New Testament, but hey, in the old one, He's busy doing all kinds of horror to people. But in any case, they had to kill all the women and children and kids and animals and goats and I don't know why they deserved it either, unless they ate him, I guess, or whatever. But that's not really the story there, but let's read more about this. The Book of the Giants is an antediluvian pre-flood narrative that was received primarily in the Manichaean literature and known at Turfan. However, the earliest known traditions for the book originate in Aramaic copies of the Book of Giants among the Dead Sea Scrolls. References to the Giants mythology are found in Genesis, the books of Enoch, Jubilees, Genesis, Apocryphon, Baruch, Damascus document, and visions in Daniel. This book tells of the background and fate of these antediluvian giants and their fathers, the Watchers, called the Grigori of the Slavonic Enoch, the sons of God or holy ones, who rebelled against heaven when, in forbidden violation of the strict boundaries of creation, they commingled in their lust with the daughters of men. Okay, so just to hold it right there, okay, here's my thoughts about it, because I've read all the accounts of the giants and dug up in the mythologies of the giants in the Americas with the native peoples and in Europe and all this kind of stuff like that, okay, so, and I mentioned it in one of my previous videos on this channel, not my old channel, but I have plenty of videos on my old channel about the giants and how they're not bad. Okay, so forbidden violation of the strict boundaries of creation. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. That these, first of all, what are we talking about here? Okay, we're really talking about, some, God guy who did this and all kind of stuff like that. First of all, it says right in the Bible, God is not a man. Can he come down in human form or whatever? I guess so, because that would make all this explanation, possible. But this, I'm sure, was a prohibition among the people in the antediluvian times, where the ages of the giants like Jason Jarrell and Sarah Palmer go over. And by the way, is one of these Adina guys, a rendition of him, as opposed to an average guy there. Well, that guy there, the Adina guy, even at 8 foot tall and the strength that he had, could twist this guy's arm off and legs off like chicken wings and chicken legs on a roast chicken. Okay, so do you really want this guy's kids going to with your kid to the same school, like elementary school? His kid's like 7 feet tall and your kid is like 4 feet tall. Do you really want that happening? Okay, so why do we have to get rid of the giants? We're kind of afraid of them, right? That this possibility might happen. Okay, we're just incompatible with the giants to a certain extent. Did some giant races survive? Well, they sure did, the chiefs of the Fiji Island, but they had maybe no contact with outside parties while their ruling class, which are the royals of their society there. Okay, current chief, I think, is 7 foot 7 inches tall and weighs like 400 pounds, and he's not fat. Anyway, you had that going on there, and you had the Watusi people I show on my old channel, my Stonewall Research channel, my other channel. about how the Watusi people in a 1939 travel film to explain all about the Watusi people and their subjects. The Tutsi people, okay, which we know about, is mentioned about in the news often, that they're these, mean fighters there in Africa and all kind of stuff like that. Well, the Watusi people probably survived because their peoples were loyal to them and were a fighting force to prevent them from getting killed. Okay, there seems to be this giant genocide going on in the past, and Joshua defeats Jabin and his allies. Okay, at this time Joshua went and destroyed the race of giants called the Anakim, who lived in the hill country in Hebron, Debir, Anab, and in all the hill country of the Levant there. Alright, so he killed these giants who lived in the hills. Well, from all the mythologies that we read about, often these giants, especially in Europe, lived in the mountains. Always lived in the mountains, okay? So, are you referring to real people? Okay, so, and by the way, the Canaanites who were there on the other side of this or whatever, down by the coastal regions or whatever, they also were giant, right? Joshua had to kill them all. He killed these people too up in the hills. He killed all the people there that were giant people, because this is the start of the giant genocide, at least a documented start of the giant genocide recorded in the Bible here. This is what the story is about. It's a story about the giant genocide that was going to happen all over this planet. And it spread all over this planet simply because of our fears. Our race, our humanoid race, that one of the surviving races is amalgamation of hybrid race of all these different humanoids of the past. Okay, apparently long enough time passed for us to have our own hybrid race of people here, okay, but with still pockets of giants all around the planet, and surviving ones up until this day. From historic times even, with all the accounts of the giant chieftains in the Americas all over the place, including here on Long Island, okay? So, and the giants being, so among the tallest people in the world, in the plains there in 1800, and the Adena people, which we know all about. I commented on Brian Foster's, he's showing something there, and I said, the giants built the pyramids, and, somebody commented about there's no such thing as giants or whatever. Okay, so explain to me who these people are. Alright, what are they? Slightly more robust? They're going to yank your arms and legs off like chicken wings and chicken legs off a roast chicken? I don't think so. We all know it's an understatement, given, because they don't want to explain all this stuff. But I guess maybe now they're going to have to. I don't know. With hundreds of different ghost species from the past. Okay, well, this is real. They know all about the Adena. There's no mystery there. They're obviously giant peoples of the past that don't make sense. Right? Even the people who are researching height and growth don't understand it completely. They just say, well, people of different sizes in the past. Well, how could it be? Can't be of the same species. You dopes. Should study zoology more. You goofballs. Alright, so who are these men of renown and stuff? Come on now. Okay, so let's read on in this Wikipedia baloney encyclopedia article here. There are even more corrupt offspring. The giants were various called after Nephilim, Gibborim, or Rephaim, being the earthly half-breed races that fought against God and his righteous followers, whose numbers diminished as the world was overwhelmed with corruption and evil. The Manichaean fragments give these wicked ones the general name demons. But see, in Greek, Enoch, the book of Enoch in Greek calls them bastards, right? Not demons. Alright, so, what was his demon name applied? So, maybe the correct translation is bastards. Alright, so, though the terms for the watchers and their offspring are often confused in their various translations and iterations. Collectively, these rebellious races are referred to as the fallen angels in the apocryphal sources, as also in the biblical narratives that reference them. Okay, well, not so much in this account here with Joshua and the Anakim. You know, are these leftovers too? Or just, you know, so all these different humanoid races survived the flood. Well, this is what they're talking about. The humanoid races that survived the flood, who are giant peoples, and we could not coexist with them because we're afraid of them. Because could they be savage fighters? Probably. And if they were hybrids too, of all different kinds of races, look, what are you going to create when you crossbreed all these different types of humanoids from the past? What is the mental picture? What is the brain picture? The composition of these people, their psychology and all kind of stuff based on these different imbalances of DNA and all this kind of stuff? Well, is it a surprise that, you know, races of the past were so warlike today and all this kind of stuff? Maybe because we're defects. You know, or a combination. We couldn't keep our privates covered up for 2 seconds. No matter where we saw that, didn't matter what they looked like. You know, hey, babe. You know, but I'm telling you, the Bible is describing the prohibitions of it. Okay, that the various races, including our race, probably had prohibitions of it. You know, and certainly later on, you know, during the time of the giant genocide, we had every reason to, because they made up every reason in the book to kill these people. It makes it all that easier for your people to kill all the people once you demonize them by calling them cannibals, whatever you're going to call them, and whatever you're going to say they did. Okay, we're good at that. All right. Meanwhile, people didn't do any of these things. They're just angry and hateful and want to kill them, like the Galena people. Right? A story of giant genocide in the Americas, just straight up. Okay, the University of Washington did a study there. I went over the article. But as if Frank C. Hibbins' research from 1930s didn't amount to anything. He did an extensive archaeological study of the Galena people and discovered that it looked like the weapons of the Pueblo that genocided all these people. But shh, don't talk about it. We're going to use that. All those Torreons, the 25 and 30 foot, beautifully built with cut limestone flooring in it, and all these decorative features and ergonomic features and beautiful insides and well built and everything, used for target practice by the U.S. military. Because we can't have that, you see. That's why they're all destroyed. When the guy came upon them, all right, they were all intact. And all of a sudden, they're not intact, all right? They destroyed them on purpose. They don't want us to know the history. They don't want us to know the past. They want us to go with the narrative for the Native Americans, because you keep them peaceful, okay? You're not saying anything, you know, bad about them or anything like they genocided some people. What they did, the peaceful Pueblo, it's their weaponry there. And they bent them over backwards to make them shorter when they executed them and their babies. Alright, that's the Galena people. Watch my video on my other channel sometime if you're new here. You'll find out more about it. Alright, so they're not talking about the men of renown. But here, if you go to the men of renown, okay, these were heroes, okay? So like some say Gilgamesh and these other warriors of the past, Hercules, you know, Samson, whoever they were, okay? You have these men of renown in the past who were probably giant hybrid people of the race. It's perfectly acceptable if you're born into a family there and you have a lot more giant DNA than some other weird humanoid DNA in you, and you're big, of excessive size, abnormal excessive size, unlike all the animal species that were supposed to be an animal, right? Yeah, all the same species and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, that doesn't happen. only happens to us because of what this fellow said. Not Randall Carlson, this fellow. Okay? And Randall Carlson talks about these catastrophes in the past, that civilization built themselves up to a certain level and then was destroyed again and again and again. Well, this could be the reason why all the humanoid species occurred and came together and all kind of stuff. After all these cataclysms of the past, people would have no idea what the past is, just like we don't. And we have modern equipment to research all these things. We're just beginning to understand it through the DNA here. Okay, but according to this guy, the ghost DNA, there's like hundreds of different DNAs from all these humanoids of the past. And I've read to you on my channel so many of the accounts of the giants with all these different configurations, extra teeth, elongated skulls, all this stuff all over this planet. Okay, they refuse to acknowledge it, all because of Alice Hrdlicka, who buried this deep and probably destroyed a lot of evidence. You know, a lot of the advances in archaeology and anthropology came through the Americas and places in Europe, with this guy spreading all sorts of foul misinformation around. Okay, we know the Bell Peaker people existed. We know the Adina and Hopewell existed. There's no question about it now. They have to admit to it. All right, so when somebody says, "Oh, no such thing as giants," well, there certainly are. The ones who have been identified. People, I've read to you from, articles here about, what their size was, and they were different body types. Yeah, just like these schools of fish could have different body types, right? Different skeletal structures from fish to fish to fish. No, that only happens with us. A clear indication that we're a hybrid species of hundreds of different humanoids from the past. The whole picture of the past is entirely different than you think in the millions of years. And, people like the Thunderbolts, who knows how old the Earth is? They say, point. They can't carbon date rock. This is all based on, their estimates so far out. The margin of error in their estimates is just, and the errors that they get, here's an error right here. The out of Africa theory. No such thing. All right, watch Robert Shepard's video, okay? I'll explain more about the anthropology and archaeology that goes along with this than I certainly can. All right, but in respect to this whole thing, okay, and then Joshua going in to defeat these people, okay, there was some people that said that the Canaanites, the ones that we know about in the Bible, this is more deeper research into it, okay, who lived in the area at the time before the Canaanites or whatever, okay? Some people say it's the Phoenicians, because the Phoenicians' alphabet and the ancient Hebrew alphabet are absolutely identical. So let me throw this at you. From what we know about the Adina and the Hopewell that I've gone over on this channel and my other Stonewall Research channel, okay? All right. Let me throw this at you. All right, so let's say the Hebrews were the subjects of the Phoenicians or the Canaanites. All right. The ruling class in a social dynamic that we knew about was going on, certainly between the Adina and Hopewell, now that the anthropologists and archaeologists at the University of Indiana more or less confirmed this. They're going to confirm it again when they do more research. They certainly are going to confirm it again, no doubt. And what I highly suspect was going on in Europe with the Bell Beaker people, All right, and what we know about the Watusi tribe that exists in modern times, 20th century, of a similar dynamic where the extra tall people who are 7 and 8 foot tall were the ruling class over ordinary sized subjects, the Tutsi people. All right, and managed to survive the genocide because, again, from the accounts in the Americas that I read about on this channel, the Stonewall Research Channel, okay, mass burials of giants, bones found here in the Americas, like huge areas where just giant bones were found, and these look like mass burials of some sort of thing going on. A giant genocide was going on. And the story of Joshua in the Bible is the story about the beginning of it. Okay, when he executed the Anakim here. We're not compatible with giant peoples like that who would be threatening to us for whatever reasons. You know, whether they're being punks or we're being punks, we're not on for that. We're good. Good. You know. Pick up a newspaper, see how good we are. Okay, so, and we're civilized, we're advanced. Yeah. All right, so just think about it and look. You know, take a look at Robert Supper's video. Now he gets a lot of criticism for being because he's all these pumping the Aryans and Brill. You know, during the Nazi period there, and, you know, whites, and, you know, so this fifth race from the past could be of any varying color, depending on whatever humanoids we're talking about, since we can't seem to keep our privates from going places that they shouldn't go, right? Because I think what the Bible is talking about is a prohibition, and certainly, okay, so let's say the Adena Hopewell culture was exactly what they expected it was, okay? Don't you think there was a prohibition against the subject, the Hopewell, from co-mingling with the Adena? You don't think that? Okay, how much you want to bet that there was? It was that way, okay? So what is this talking about? Okay, what is this talking about? Alright, so having sexual relations, who rebelled against heaven by having sexual relations with human women. Okay, so this is what the story is about, okay? A prohibition from antediluvial times, and even modern times, even up to the Watusi, which existed in 20th century for real, right? The Adena and Hopewell, a prohibition of the ruled commingling with the ruling class. Okay, real simple. All right, and why do the Hebrews, ancient Hebrew, how is the exact same alphabet? Exactly the same. Not a letter different. Okay, than the Phoenicians. Okay, which are these Canaanite people living along the coastal areas there in the Levant. Alright, so giant peoples, okay, who had to be exterminated down to the last woman and child and whatever giant animals they might have had or whatever. With them, you got to get rid of them too, because the giant animals had to go. And think about it, folks. So let's say these people pose a threat to us just on simple observation and, you know, physical terms, right? With no competition there. If they had great numbers or whatever, we could easily be defeated, okay, as a race. All right, so if you look at many urban areas today, okay, any sort of urban areas today, do you see a lot of bears and tigers and lions around? Any packs of wolves wandering around the streets of Manhattan or anything like that? Well, no. Never going to happen, or even any of the suburbs around there, okay, other than upstate New York, where the occasional bear and coyote goes somewhere, whatever, which they all know about. People all have guns up there out of respect to the power of these animals. Okay, not because they hate them and they're just killers and all kind of stuff, is that you respect their power and, you want to live. But you don't find all these animals. So going back even to the further ancient past, when they had all of these giant megafauna animals around, okay? And we were around during that time, right, as a species, supposedly, according to them. Whenever this amalgamation occurred, whether this hybridization occurred some 200,000 years ago, that's when it occurred. Okay, so at least that's what they can detect up to that time, right? When you popped out of nowhere, because they still can't find the missing link. Okay, and also in this Robert Sepehr video, they say another curious thing, okay, that these DNA researchers now think that maybe that chimps and apes did not evolve from some other ape species, but evolved from some more common humanoid species. That's right. Apes evolving from the human missing link there of the past. The creature that walked upright. And a creature like Lucy was one of these creatures, all right, that evolved from a more human-like creature, for lack of a better word, a humanoid creature, okay? That's what they say, all right? That's what they're starting to believe, okay, when they're studying DNA, okay? And what they understand about all these ghost populations of the past that they're starting to begin to understand now. All right, so just thinking about what this story of the Bible really says, about the giants, okay, the book of the giants and Enoch and all kind of stuff. There has to be all this demonization of the enemy because it makes it easier for your people to kill them. All right, if you're busy having sexual relations with them, well, that means that, these people could have some sort of personality up and beyond some sort of killer. You think that all these giant people were killers in the past? Well, how could that be? If we know about the Adena people and what they passed along to the Iroquois, who seem to have come from the Ohio Valley, all those different tribes in the Confederation came from the Ohio Valley. The Cherokee stayed there because their language is an Iroquois language, but it's just different. One of the Hopewell languages. All right? And they passed along that great law of peace that United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is based on. But they were, cannibals and but I mean, it could be that some of them were, because you keep on mixing these people together and creating hybrids all the time. What's going to happen to their brain chemistry? You're going to create all these savages? Well, this is what happened in later times. These people are probably all disturbed and everything else. Living in the mountains, trying to keep it away from people, average sized people who are killers, us. We're the most successful humanoids hybrid. There were others in the past, well, they didn't compete with us, or we absorbed them into our hybrid, so they don't exist anymore. We finished them off. The Denisovans and, the Neanderthals, you got rid of them, when it came time to, okay? Just finish them all off, and now we don't have to worry about them being more powerful or anything like that than us, or more savage fighters or better fighters, because, hey, it's the old Steve Martin joke, okay? You want to be the smartest man in the world? Well, I got an idea. I'll kill the smartest man in the world, and I'm the second smartest man in the world, and then I'll be the first smartest man in the world. I'll be the number one smartest man in the world. See, the old Steve Martin joke? Why is it funny? We're killing them, right? So that's the nature of our species, right? We're still doing it today, right? in Palestine and in Ukraine with proxy wars and everything. Nobody will ever learn anything from anything. Just no, then nobody. All the hate in the world and everything. This is because, look, if they're busy genetically developing corn, what other things were they playing around with in the past? If they could play around with corn like they played around with corn, that University of California says is the single greatest genetic engineering achievement ever by mankind. So how could that possibly be from 8,000 and 9,000 years ago? Okay, what was going on in the past? More advanced tool marks on all the stonework around the world, was sold from like power tools, laboratory for alternative history in Russia, Brian Forster, everybody, tube drills and all kind of stuff like that, more accurate statues than we could possibly carve today by hand and machine and all kind of stuff. We would need machines to carve the statues from the first dynastic period in Egypt and all kind of stuff. Look, the whole picture of the past. And look, even the Egyptians too, right? They show these pictures of them, the ruling class being giant sized and all these helper people being smaller and all the depictions there and everything, but they show, it's just figurative, it's just symbolic, I know they were great people, so they made them bigger. No, they were actual people, and that's how big they were. Okay? And, again, these dynamics going off into the ancient past, well, the ages of the giants, like Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer talk about here, with the Adena giants, the ages of giants extend back. Obviously, if you want to believe the Bible as being, sort of part history there, go back into the pre-flood, antediluvian times, right? Well, it seems like the social dynamics derived into our current notions of historical times, at least back to the Adena and Hopewell, that we can discern that, right? The Watusi or obvious 20th century demonstrable example of it, in your face example of it. What's so hard to understand? All right, I say, based on what I know about it, and I know about the Phoenicians, and people say, that Joshua slaughtered the Phoenicians who were the Canaanites, and it was giant peoples. The Phoenicians were giant peoples. Okay, all right. So this is just a story about the beginning of the giant genocide and all the concomitant stories afterward, even into historical times where, these legends of the giants living in the mountainous regions in Europe and solitary, etc., they killed off all these people, Jack and the Beanstalk, just the tale about a giant genocide, the completion of it, these people tried to survive by isolating themselves away from normal people. But we found them, we like where they live, so we're going to kick them out of there, just like the Iroquois or the Haudenosaunee did to the stone giants there, who built the stone walls in northeastern part of North America here. The 240 plus thousand, 500,000 miles of stone walls that no populations of people here in the New England area. When I break down the demographics in my debunking, only a small percentage of the overall population, 300,000 million people. Okay, so how many of them were children? How many of them were women? How many of them were adults, with capable physical and good health that were able to do this kind of work, okay, when the average life expectancy was 45 and all kind of stuff? Okay, so a small percentage of people were going to build 240,000 miles of stone walls that would take 15,000 men working on regular hours, like our regular work week hours, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. It would take them 2,000 years to build all the stone walls here. Okay? 2,000 years, okay? My calculations are correct, but those are some of the most popular videos on my other channel. Alright, so look. Could it be that the Hebrews were living in the same sort of dynamic among the Phoenicians? Well, I say that it's very likely that they were. Okay? And eventually this rebellion against the ruling class. Ooh, what a surprise. A rebellion against the ruling class somewhere? Oh, never heard of that. You know, come on now. All right, they had the identical alphabet? Really? And they lived in the same geographic location? Or they lived in the hills? See, the Hebrews lived in the hills. Okay? In more, when they look at actual archaeology and anthropology, right? So these are like the hill people. The Hebrews are like the hill people, and they could tell the difference by the vowels that they used, the way they said words, you know, with the phrases that they used. They know that these were the Hebrews and these were the Phoenicians. That's the only way they could know from reading whatever, you know, text they have on clay tablets or whatever from that era. All right, so look, this is just a, you know, look, this is based on all my research on the Giants and everything. It seems that this is what the story is. It's a couple of things. We're talking about the prohibition of commingling the ruling class, okay, the gods and the children of the gods or watchers or whoever, with the average people. Okay, so the prohibition, which makes a lot of sense from any social, you know, sociology 101. Okay, it just makes a lot of sense. Right, there's going to be a prohibition, right, on commingling, right. Then we're talking about the giant genocide that's going on, right, and also the dynamics that were going on in the past between the giant humanoid peoples being the ruling class over average-sized people like us. A successful humanoid hybrid from the ancient past that looks more like Tolkien's past. And I think Robert Sepper even mentions it in his video there. So anyway, guys, just to wrap this up, okay, I want you to think about this. All right, because these things could be sort of mytho-history there in the Genesis tale in the Bible before you get to the real super inner religious part of the Bible that starts, you know, later on after the, you know, Deuteronomy and all kind of other stuff. So, you know, think about it, all right? I think I'm spot on this, really, because so many things are pointing to that. I think that's what we're looking at, a story about this, a prohibition, commingling, the giant genocide that took place all across the world, everywhere, okay, because it's just incompatible with the giants. And the dynamics that were going on, the social dynamics that were going on in these societies back then. If the giants did exist in the past, and apparently leftovers like the Watusi people, the Adena and the Hopewell, and probably the Belbeeker people and whoever their subjects could be identified, I'm sure, if they worked at it, but they don't. But they would find that this is what dynamic was going on in the ancient past, probably with the Egyptians, you know, the first dynastic period anyway, and with this accounts of the Old Testament here. All right, so this is what we're talking about, you know, not these, you know, space age people that came down from outer space in another planet somewhere or something, they landed on Earth here, and just forget about all that stuff. It's no talking snakes, or did the snakes ever talk or whatever. Just the tale is about something else that's going on in the past, okay, where we came from, okay, and a reason for our peoples and a belief in something, a creator or whatever. Well, maybe somebody did create us who is greater than us, who was not a man as we know a man to be, but some kind of humanoid from the past. All right, so anybody who could create us, if they were scientifically creating us, well, that guy would be the equivalent of a god, right? Okay, so because like the makers of corn are the equivalent of a god, they still don't know where it comes from. And how it could possibly be that a plant could be dependent on human beings for its propagation forever? Without us, it can't survive. Okay, how could the cavemen do that? We can't do it today. Why aren't we doing it today? Don't you want to create more superfoods? What's the problem? You saying that cavemen can do something that we can't? They don't know what they're talking about because they don't know about the past. And if they knew about the past, they could figure it out. Okay? And who's to say it's from some extinct species of plant that they haven't identified? They didn't identify Neanderthals and Denisovans until the last 50 years or whatever. Okay, so think about these things, guys. Think about it. Alright? I think I'm spot on in my, thesis here. My theory about it, it's just based on all the evidence I've read about. Okay, it just makes sense. Alright, so think about everything that was said in this video. Okay, again, I say that the giants weren't cannibals. It's just a pejorative given all around the world. The people that you hate and you have to get rid of, and make it easy for your people to kill them because they're monsters. They're awful. They're terrible. They're whatever they are. They're eating babies or killing people, indiscriminately for no reason or whatever. Or just, we want to get rid of them because they scare the shit out of us, and it's just wouldn't work out, folks. It's just, think about it. Again, the 7-foot kid at the bus stop, they get into a fight. How do you think that's going to work out? Okay, so it seems almost like a necessity for us to do this. But was it? Could these people have been reasoned with or whatever? Maybe they were reasonable people. Maybe they did abuse their power like most societies did. So think about it anyway. Alright, guys, anyway, Bugcat7. Hope you enjoyed that. Please do hit the like. Please do subscribe. Bugcat7 signing out. Thanks, guys. Peace.